Welcome to the Knock on Archery podcast, where we bring all archers and bow hunters together from all walks of life with the goal to educate, empower, and inspire you to be better both in the field and on the range. And we're podcasting. What's up, Zach Kurtzall?
Oh, just another day, Mr. Dudley. How are you doing?
That's bullshit. That's a lie. It's not another day, bro. Are you guys pumped?
Oh yeah. Yeah, really pumped. Of course we're pumped, man. I think you said it best, right? It's family.
It
So,
is. It is. Well, this is a big day, everybody. And I wanted to do a podcast with you first and foremost, Zach, just because for all the listeners out there, you guys probably don't realize that Zach and I have been friends long before he's now president at Hoyt Archery. Prior to that, were you an intern when you first started, when we competed
no,
against each other?
I came over as a product engineer.
Oh, okay. Straight up
Yeah.
in, okay. And what were you doing first? I forget what was your specialty. Because
Uh, at
Coop was
first it was
cams, I
fuse.
think.
Yeah. I was in charge of accessories early on, but um I mean, at first, the first couple of years, you're just cutting your teeth and learning everything. It's just wherever you can impact and have a piece of that pie, because it's just a big job and there's a lot of things to do. And we always just had that pack of wolves mentality, right? We had some specialists here and there. Coop was certainly a specialist on the cam side of things, but I was the new guy doing whatever needed to be done, really. And then it kind of rolled into the accessories side for a while.
I just love that. I love the fact that you came in and just kind of rolled up your sleeves in a part of the company that, isn't the most luxurious, you know what I mean? And then you're just a Cinderella story of someone that just continues to grind, ends up becoming, a manager there and one of the heads. And then I left to take on this opportunity that I had with PSE. And not too long thereafter, Randy Walk retires, and I was in Colorado at the Total Archery Challenge, and I remember coming around the corner, and Isaac came up to me and said, "Dude, have you heard who the new Hoyt president is?" And I said, "No." And he said, "It's Zach." And I was like, I was so excited. I just fist pumped him because I wanted that for you so bad. And then we got on a call.
Yeah, you called me like right then.
I called. I'm like, I just was so pumped. And I think I even said like, have you thrown Randy's shit outside yet and moved in? And you're like, no, he's still got some stuff in here. And then and then you said, but the first thing I want to know is, when is this PSE contract over with? And I told you the date, and you guys were awesome. Always staying in touch, always helping me when I had an issue. If I ever had a question or an issue, you guys sent me bows so that I could stay up to date with our followers and people asking questions. And uh, yeah, it was an amazing 4.5 years, I guess. But also everything happens for a reason, man. Right? Every single thing.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I don't know that I can add to that comment. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. I think everything happens for a reason, but I think we all have a pretty major impact on what those reasons are, right? So,
Yeah.
our actions drive those reasons, so to speak.
So to go back a little bit for everybody listening, I guess what I want to say first and foremost is I want to step back a little bit for all the listeners out there to understand that, I'd been at Matthews for about 10 years, and during that time I was competing with Zach and with Darren Cooper. And I was the solo cam guy. You guys were cam and a half, and it seemed like the industry had this big divide. Both companies were like going at each other's throats in marketing, single cam versus cam and a half. And in the end, the three of us were just showing up to shoots, doing dumb stuff in our rooms, freaking winning medals, and we didn't give a crap who was shooting what until the day I ended up, you know, leaving Matthews. And I remember that day. I don't know how it got back to you guys. Do you remember how it got back to Hoyt so fast? I mean, was it archery talk back then?
No, I don't.
Or
I
did
really don't
Cousins?
remember.
I think Cousins might have told Tekmachov or something like that.
Yeah, but it was within a day, I think, or maybe even same day. I don't remember exactly how that got came across the country so
It
fast.
was it was probably a lot like this time where, once the cat was out of the bag, the industry was talking and knew what was up. And honestly, I was sitting out on my deck, um, just debating whether that was the stupidest thing I'd ever done in my life, if I'm honest. And you called and said, "Hey, do you know what you're going to be doing?" And I said, "I don't yet, but I'm gonna stay in the archery industry, obviously, and I've got to find a new home." And I remember PSE, Bowtech, and you guys all reached out, and I remember um, setting up, honestly, telling people that I was going to come see them at their factory, just like what I told you. However, you guys had me out there literally in like 2 days. I think it was a day, maybe it might have been the next day or one day after that. And I remember saying, I don't feel comfortable coming to Hoyt. You guys might have said, we're not comfortable with you coming in Hoyt. And we decided to meet on neutral ground. And you and Darren Cooper brought me two bows to the Easton Center. And we literally built bows I think on Coop's tailgate, didn't we?
Yeah, I mean, we had some stuff set up because we got your draw length and whatnot, but yeah, we were certainly making some tweaks to stuff out at the field. It's not even the center; it's the archery. There's an archery range behind Easton Technical Products, and
we
uh,
we met in someone's backyard. We met in Easton's backyard range
yeah, that's
for me
right.
to, and
Yep,
if I'm totally honest, I remember shooting for a little bit. I think you guys had to get back for lunch hour or something,
yeah.
and I just put up a fresh face, and I'm like, I'm just gonna see what I can do with these things because I had really never shot them other than in Matt's test lab. Um, and yeah, honestly, after that first day, that first green bow you guys built me, built me a green lightning bow with like 3500s on it with spiral cams. And I shot the best outdoor feeder round I had ever shot in my life, literally after like 45 minutes with this thing, and pretty much thought I was getting ready to just tear the world up with that thing. Funny enough, I left there and I told you guys, I know what I can do with this. So check that part off. And I remember flying home and thinking, why am I going to go see these other people? Because the reality is, I want to teach. I want to get to the Easton centers. I want to do what I was doing in Europe. And Hoyt and Easton had the biggest death grip on the whole international market, which was kind of my scene, I guess, at that time. And so, yeah, I remember calling, I think it was Blake at PSE, and it was John at Bowtech at that time, and just said, "Hey guys, I really appreciate the opportunity, but there's no reason for me to come out." And so began the Hoyt,
Yeah.
the
What
Hoyt
year was
S.
that? I don't even remember. Like,
I want to think it was at the end of '05. or '06.
Yeah, that
Uh,
sounds right. Thinking
yeah,
about the
might
book. Isn't it ironic that we gave you a green bow back then?
I know, dude. And so here's what's crazy. There were two. One, you made me that one, and then um you were machining names
Yeah,
on riser on the tech riser,
yep.
or on
Look
the,
at
on
think
the
through.
window part of the riser. And you made me a green one that said Kermie on it because that was Sharon's nickname. And you knew that I was, every time I was in Europe, I was trying to see Sharon. And when I was traveling and I wasn't able to see her, I was always thinking about her. So I had Goldie, which was, both of my bows were named after Sharon. I had Kermie and Goldie that you made me, both of those. And what's funny is that bow that I shot at the Easton Center, I don't know what it was, just the perfect placebo because after that day I never shot that bow. Well, no, I came home and I worked with it for a few days, but that bow never saw a tournament. I ended up shooting Kermie and Blondie and then eventually went to a pro elite with 3000s and spirals at 53 pounds. And that was honestly my butter. So, but I'm trying to think, where did we all meet the first time, Zach? Do you remember when we all met? Because I'm sure it was your party. I'm sure we came to a party at your house.
Yeah, but I think that was after. I think we met at Arizona Cup.
Okay.
I
Okay.
really do. Like '04.
Yeah.
Maybe
Well, it
would
would
have
have
been
been when I
before
beat
that.
Dave.
Yeah.
It would have been when my first, that was my first Target event. And I showed up with a 3D setup. And I remember I had nothing right. I had two bows and I remember they were both 3D bows and I had no idea what I was going to do. And I remember Rod White saying, just use the qualification rounds to like get your bow dialed in and figure this stuff out. And he said, because you're going to qualify to be in to be in the shoot offs. And he's like, so don't worry about it. Just have your shit together by the second day, which is kind of what happened. And as I remember, and again, everything happens for a reason. Cousins is on one side of the field according to the brackets, and I'm on the far other side of the field, literally with just a pathetic qualification round, trying different arrows and getting my sight marks and trying fiber optics and dots or whatever the hell I was doing. And we just keep working towards each other. And then next thing I know, we're kind of poised to be in the finals. And I remember Dave coming over to me and saying, "What's it what's it like, all that pressure?" And I go, "What pressure?" And he goes, I think he said something like, "I've won this 6 or 7 times in a row. Everyone wants me to lose, and everyone wants the Cinderella story. So, how's that pressure with, everyone's just wanting you to win and you're having to go against the, 6 time champ or whatever." And I remember just like instantly saying, I don't know, what's the pressure like for you? Imagine when you're going to get your ass kicked by a guy that's out here with a 3D setup and he's never even come to one of these before. And I just remember the look on his face like, oh, now what do I say? But we all became friends. It was such a fun part of at least my life. I don't know about yours,
Oh
but
yeah.
for me, that's like when everyone talks about their college days and their days in the frat house, or all the glory days on a team in college. Well, I gave mine up to shoot a bow, and you guys were my team. I mean, you guys were some of our shenanigans on the road were just awesome, you know. The only one that was missing from my shenanigans, I guess, would be Dave Stepp. He also added to those by quite a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Hilarious. I didn't hang out with Step a lot. I think he was sort of walking away from the game right about that time. So,
Yeah, he was.
but great personality, funny
Well,
guy.
tell me how much Hoyt's changed. Tell me what I've missed in 5 years, and what we're going to be doing moving forward. This is your From the President's Desk podcast.
I think the biggest focuses, some of the major focuses, um, from my perspective and from the team's perspective, is something that I always wanted to do better was really just get a strong focus on delivery. It's really tough in this industry just because there's a pretty significant time of year, seasonality is the way we refer to it, where there's a lot of bows sold in certain parts of the year versus other ones. And so creating that big giant demand also creates some challenges in the delivery side. But I always felt like sooner or later our customer was going to get tired of waiting as long as they were waiting. And so that's been
Yeah.
a really big focus. The other big focus that I really wanted to put in place is just, my management style is very, very different than Randy's was over the years. And Randy was a very successful president, there's no doubt. But there was some things that I wanted to change just from a standpoint of I've got this team of people that are just they're experts. I mean, I don't have a there's no AAA players on this team. You know what I mean? In the
Yeah.
grand scheme, we've got major league ball players or NFL, whichever pro, level you want to use as a metaphor. And I just wanted to let those people drive this company from a standpoint of like getting their ideas on the table. I think we'd get stagnant if I was driving everything. My job is to move rocks out of their way,
Yeah.
and allow them to be successful. And so those were like up front. I literally said the very first day, I think it was July 19th of '01, and it was a Monday. And I think the first thing I just said was everything that you thought was a no before, you should probably ask the question again.
Yeah, I love that. I heard that story not from you, but I heard it from your employees. And this is a great thing for you to tell everybody because there's a lot of Hoyt listeners that are going to be listening to this and you know, wondering like where's Hoyt going and what's the leadership like and what is it like internally. And I remember hearing that you drew a circle and tell me about that because this is such a great leadership move on day one of you stepping into the office. Because I remember the part of whatever you assumed was a no yesterday could be a yes today, and whatever you heard yes yesterday might be a no today. And then you drew the circle up there, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I drew the circle on a whiteboard in our conference room, and I said it's up to you guys to decide what goes back in the circle. Right now, it's a blank slate. We get to decide as a team what goes back in that circle, and that was where it drove the statement of if it was even if it was a no last week, it doesn't mean it's a no today. So let's ask the questions. Let's make the right decisions for the company. But today there's nothing in there. We get to start from scratch. We get to decide what we want the direction of this company to be. And that was the sort of metaphor of that circle, right? Is like you draw a circle and it's like there's nothing in there yet. We get to put in there whatever we want now.
Right.
And I think it took a while for my team to really get down the path of, there's a little bit of like they have to trust me at a super high level to get them put themselves out there. And just years of different leadership style, people had sort of were a little bit withdrawn from that. There might have been some nervousness, and it took them a little while, but man, today my team flourishes. I told Jeremy Eldridge, he's our director of marketing. I told him one time, I said, if you want to put a piece of clothing in our brand as an advertising, I said, I'm going to tell you if I like it or not. I'm not going to tell you if you should do it or not.
Yeah.
That's your call. So that's just an example like that. On the engineering side, which is where my chops come from, I told those guys, I said, I will have an opinion, but unless I say this is the decision, it's just an opinion. And then what I try to do is I try to strip the president title off in some of those discussions and go, I'm just Zach right now. I'm not coming to these discussions with the presidential title. I just want to be a part of this team for a moment. So don't weigh my opinion more than anybody else's in here. I just want to give it. from the, from the perspective of somebody who's an expert in the product engineering field. And so I just try to do that to give them the power to make those decisions. And I think, the products that we're bringing to market today, that we've brought to market over the last few years, it's the best stuff Hoyt's ever put out. And that's from an engineering team with a couple of really young guys and a young leader, but with great ideas and great drive. That's those guys, you know.
Yeah, but you also have some freaking studs in there, Daniel. I
Oh yeah.
mean, you got Gideon, you got, I mean,
Yeah,
Gold.
we have a great mix of, Daniel's 20 years, I think, 19 years. Doug Denton on the recurve side. He's been around a long time. Brian Gold, he's probably 13 years. He's the product engineering manager now. He moved into that role when I moved out of that role. And yeah, it's not to put light on it, but we have a couple of young guys who have been here, 3 years, 2 years, and bringing that fresh blood to the table, fresh ideas, fresh opinions. That's been awesome. But if I would have brought them in and just, put my thumb on them and said, this is what we want, we wouldn't get the same level of new ideas and approaches to things. And I think that's been, even for a guy like Daniel, allowing him the space to go be as great as he can be. He's changed a ton of the stuff that we've done and how we approach some of our designs and our testing. So yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to make light of the team. We do have a bunch of studs in there. There's no doubt, but it's not a bunch of guys, that have been here for 21 years like me. We've got a pretty good mix. Like Gideon's been here 26 years or 27 maybe, but we have
Well,
a
that's
great
what,
mix of guys.
yeah, that's what's impressive. And again, this comes down, I'm sure by the time this podcast comes out, um, I'll probably do a individual podcast, maybe, or maybe not. Just kind of let my followers know a little bit more in depth of what went into this decision for me. But, I just really wanted to focus on this next chapter of what I personally want to do. I wanted it to be with my friends. And that was first and foremost. I was very upfront with I talked to some people from, some leaders from Botech yesterday, and I just told them like, hey, you guys you've made some great strides. Your bow shot great, but these people are just my friends, and I wanna work with friends. Back when I would come into town, I'd be sleeping on Darren's couch while, for a few weeks at a time while we're editing, our first DVDs. And Daniel at that time had just started at Matthew or at started in the engineering department, and he was upstairs on a mattress in the spare bed living at Darren's, and then we'd come over to your house and you'd be there and Reed would be there. And then, we'd pack baits up to Idaho for our bear hunt. And, I met Tom Driffle, who's, now running all your sales.
Yep.
And then, Tom Driffle's kids were Harry's age and, they grew up together. Sharon was there, you guys share, my whole everything was Sharon. You guys were part of that whole thing. So, I mean, and if you look at, and then Jeremy, Jeremy had come in fairly new. And, I literally was, working with Randy and Mike and Jeremy and Tom and you and Daniel and Cooper. And now, if you look at Hoyt and you look at yourself, Daniel, Gideon, you look at Driffle and Jeremy, I mean, how many, just those five people, how long have you guys been at Hoyt? I mean, that's got to be 120 years.
Yeah, I mean, if you say Gideon's 27, Daniel's 20, I'm 21, Driffle's 22, Jeremy's 18. I mean,
Yeah. It's
yeah,
just amazing. I mean, I'm getting to come back with all of my high school buddies, literally hot tub time machine, but yet now they all have like the job that can literally say yes or no to anything that I ask. It's not like we all have to, run it through the channels now. It's the perfect scenario. And you guys, more than anybody other than Sharon, know what my passion is and know, literally the Knock On brand was created, for those of you who don't know, the Knock On brand was created honestly by Hoyt. So how this originally started was, you guys didn't really know what you wanted me to do. You just know that you just knew you didn't want me to work for someone else.
Yeah.
That's true. That
And listen, back then I was a product engineer.
Yeah. So I mean that's totally true. But each year, the international sales manager would give me areas outside of the US to where we would focus on growing sales for Hoyt, because when I had left Matthews, I was the international sales and marketing manager, but also competing. So I earned a lot of the respect that I had from those distributors, really from the competition floor, I would think, and then doing a lot of education, a lot of free seminars, everything was free. And then I started touring for, I literally toured for Hoyt and Easton and did free seminars on these huge runs through Europe. I think people don't really understand how much I was actually over there, but that was by design, keeping it quiet. I was running stealth missions. I was literally, it's true though, right? I
Yeah.
mean, it's 100% true. And what happened was, um, honestly, somewhere around 2009, uh, there was a big focus on Canada. And, so we're like, Dud, how do we get you up there in Canada to start doing seminars? So I was calling these Canadian dealers and stuff, asking, hey, I do free seminars. I come up, I'm going to work with people and everything. And they just said, we know you're a Target guy, and there's definitely some people that understand that. But the reality is, up here, unless you're on Wild TV, no one gives a crap. Because Wild TV had just began. And, back then, the only way you could watch hunting was on a VHS tape and stuff. So Wild TV really changed the game in Canada. So I remember, just prior to that, I was selling some DVDs up in Canada at Hunt Fest, and I remember Helgi coming by and saying, dude, can we make this into a TV show? And I'm like, I don't think I have what it takes to do that. I'm just doing these DVDs. And then, but it was always in the back of my mind. And then when we decided, you know what, maybe if I started a TV show and focused on education and focused on, how to and getting better, we can literally create this. We can get on Wild TV and we'll create me as a hunting personality. And we're like, okay, I called Helgi and I said, hey, I'm looking at doing a TV show. This is what I'm going to focus on, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to still going to have the vibe of Double D. And they loved it. And they honestly gave us our airtime pro quo, because at that time, Hoyt was sponsoring uh, Wild TV's main show with Helgi. So we had to come up with a name, and we came up, we were trying to come up with all these names. For some reason, Knocked 365, like I was just stuck on this. Like I'm always knocked. I'm always knocked. And everything was taken. Everything was taken. And I remember saying like I just want it to be about like people that are always knocked on. And then it was like, wait, knock on. Okay, Knock On. Is that available? And the name Knock On was available. So then we used that name and we gave that name to Hoyt's main artist at the time, who was Mitch. And I remember sending Mitch a thing and he was like, okay, I got to do a logo for you, but Dud, tell me something about yourself. Do you know this, Zach? Have you?
I've heard little bits of the story.
Okay, so you won't believe this. So I actually sent um, I sent Mitch a picture and I said, a lot of people refer to me as like kind of the surfer archery dude, and he's just like, what? And so I sent him a picture from Gene's place,
Oh.
and it was a picture of me behind my mule deer with Coop and Niels Balders doing this. I literally had my tongue out doing the double horns on both sides, just pumped that, we had these were DIY hunts we were doing. We brought, a distributor over from Denmark and we all got animals that week. But that was my picture and I sent him that. And then, a couple weeks later, Mitch sends back a bunch of ideas for logos. And in the middle of those ideas, here stands the knock with the horns. And it was just like,
That's
without
it.
question, why has no one done that? That's it, dude. And he said, and he's like, and he goes, knock on. And I go, no, 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 knock on, dude. Like, and and so I called Helgi and I'm like, I'm doing a TV show. I'm putting together all my footage. I've got 30 kills from when I was a kid. I'm going to start putting this stuff together and we're going to start going. And that's how it began. So, I mean, Hoyt was there since the beginning of Knock On, and that's how it started. And honestly, I told you then, I'm like, I don't have time to do branding. And you guys actually, love the logo and you said, why don't we'll do the branding and the apparel. We'll manage all that. You just focus on going and doing your education, focus on going and doing, your seminars and focus on shooting. And some of the very first knock on stuff, it all shipped from Hoyt.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of people don't realize that, but this is all part of why deep down, as much as there's great people, great brands, I think the archery industry is stronger than it's ever been from having a very wide range of great product and better education for people getting involved, which means they're here longer. And the longer they're here, the more they will continue to go up and up and up to try to get the best equipment they possibly can. And what I want to do, Zach, and Randy would never let me do podcasts with you guys. I want to dig in so that people really start to understand the thought that actually goes into every single detail of this stuff. And it's funny when someone will say like, "Oh, hey, have you ever tried left helical?" And I'm like, "Dude, do you think the Hoyt engineers don't know what direction an arrow's turning like when it comes out of a bow?" Like cams, strings, all these things, these are all things that are done, but not like fully explained, fully clarified. And you guys, at least from my perspective, Hoyt has the most extensive legit target archers that are highly competitive guys and gals that are also giving direct feedback to equipment and taking your equipment and your prototypes and you're getting them in real archery applications, whether it's world archery level or whether it's every one of you guys that freaking leave work and go do DIY on that freaking Wasatch and take your stuff up there every single day. There is just a difference in the DNA. And I really hope we can bring that to the surface because you guys deserve it. I mean, you deserve it. And that's going to be a big push of mine is to get more in depth with the team on the whys because
Yeah.
people are going to start to really understand what makes some of these differences. And I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I'm excited about that too. I mean, I think some of the things that you just touched on there, those are good explanations about, how does a company the size of Hoyt. I mean, archery companies aren't huge, right? But how does a company the size of us have the years of service that are just kind of top to bottom? And I think a ton of it has to do with passion. It's like, I mean, I tell people all the time, 2003, I got my dream job and I walked away from a really good job that I had. A company in the Bay Area was going to be underground construction equipment manager, and I was hired a year ahead of time. I wrote a check to walk away from that job because they had paid for my whole last year of college. And so I was like, I'm gonna move to Salt Lake City because that's way cooler than managing underground construction equipment.
Yeah.
So, I think for all of us, whether it's me or Brian or Daniel, like we don't, this isn't just, we don't just make bows. Like we live this stuff. I mean, I freaking elk hunted like 17 days last year and hiked 12 and a half miles a day. Like we get it. And
Yeah.
I think when you really put that explanation to it, it's so much more to us. It's not just, we don't just make products. Like this stuff matters at a life level for us. It's a passion project, very much the way it is for you. Which makes it really easy to not have a lot of bad days, in the office. It makes it a lot easier to go look in the mirror and be like, even the bad days are pretty damn good.
Did you say that this morning before the ERP meeting?
Yeah. Yeah, my wife said, hope you have a good day today. And I said, doesn't really look like that's gonna happen.
Well, you
She
got on a
said,
podcast with me, so
she said, that's a great outlook. I said, that's fair. I'll change my attitude before I leave the house.
Zach, what do you think is something about Hoyt that has just been overlooked, or underexplained? Are there certain things that, because you guys really dig in and you use other people's stuff. Honestly, I've told people this all the time. There is no company in archery that has a durability protocol like Hoyt. There is not. I've been in them. Like you guys, you guys want stuff to be able to survive beyond natural archery and bow hunting, wear and tear. So I know you over engineer from a durability point of view, but what else do you think hasn't fully been, you know, I guess explained the way you feel like Hoyt should be appreciated?
That's a really good question. I think the best way I can answer that is, um, when a consumer has a success or they have a problem or whatever their experience is with our stuff, sometimes it's easy, and I do this as a consumer myself, but sometimes it's easy to go like, I can't believe they didn't, or I can't believe this happened, or those types of things, right? And I think the thing that I wish that I would like people to know is when you run into a problem, we probably are already working on it
Yeah.
because we use it so much. People, I'll give you an example. We came out with the Go Sticks, right? The front end bipod, and
Yeah,
people were
you
like,
re you
man, I
made
don't.
made my design way better.
People said,
Way
I
better.
don't want to put my cam in the dirt.
Yeah.
Man, I've been shoving my cam in the dirt for 20 years, like
Yeah, we all
mud,
have.
dirt, rocks. I don't care. But I also recognize like it's easy for me to do that. And it's good for me to do that because I'll just get a new one next year.
Yeah.
And I get it. I didn't pay the money that a consumer pays. And so and like when I go, my truck is clean and I wash it and I'm super anal about how it looks. And that's the same thing as a guy's like, I'm not putting my cam in the dirt. But my
Yeah.
example is that because it's like, we know it'll handle it.
Yeah.
So live in the space of like, when you have problems, we want to hear about it. Like, listen, truth be told, I'm a member of probably 4 or 5 Hoyt owners groups on Facebook, Instagram. I'm always lurking around in there.
Yeah.
When something pops up, if it gets enough momentum, I throw comments down, and some
Y-
people say, man, don't get in there with the sharks. And it's like, I just feel like if I was a consumer, I would be so much happier if somebody would just come to the table with some amount of knowledge or experience or just a perspective, like you
Yeah.
say, just the why. So I think that's one thing is, man, we want it to be as good and we want to meet your expectations as much as anything else. So that's a major one for me. The durability piece is one. Obviously that's we've lived on that hill for a long time, but we've made a ton of investments in technology to help us with sound, to help us on the high speed video side, just to get the best of the stuff that we can get. Because a lot of this engineering is extremely dynamic
Yeah.
and unpredictable. So some of it is, try some stuff and measure some stuff and then try some stuff again. So um, I guess that's it. Know that we have the same expectations of our equipment that you have of our equipment, and know that we're always trying to make it better.
The other awesome thing about Hoyt, I think, is that with Hoyt, you also are part of the Easton umbrella,
Yep.
because Greg Easton owns Hoyt, Greg Easton owns Easton, and Easton owns some other companies. So with that comes a board that has a incredible amount of experience. It has, access to all the leaders at every single Easton, archery facility, which are the best in the world, period. You also have the feedback of, some of the most important, I guess, peers, I would say. I don't know how to explain someone like a Juan Carlos
Oh,
or like Bruce from NFAA or Johan from JVD or just all these people, the best coaches in the world, national level coaches where their entire teams are in the Olympics with Hoyts. You guys have access to a network that is honestly just way bigger than what people are naturally going to gravitate to. And that was a big part of my original decision was I knew it was hard enough as it was for me to get my foot in the door in Europe for, to begin with, because Don Valley, Jay Bars and Don Valley had done a lot of work for, archery, honestly, just archery in general, throughout the rest of the world outside of the bow hunting that we know in the US. And so when I was, thinking about which brand I should go to, I definitely had to factor in Hoyt is trusted by more national level coaches, period. Like if I was going to work with a team and they knew I was with Hoyt and Easton, that was a huge, huge foot in the door. And, and I wasn't having to like throw an elbow in the door and like argue my way in. I could just knock and go in. And I think you guys having the ability to have that direct feedback, when you have a brand new product, to be able to get that to the type of demographic that it's designed and built for, and that's the specialty. And you literally have the elite in that category to have direct feedback and honestly to have trusted feedback that remains confidential too is pretty damn rare. But that comes from a history that Hoyt has built over all these years with countries, with federations, with national coaches, and certainly with the national shooters. So those were all big parts of like, I didn't want to swim against the current in everything I do. Because it helps me be better when I have those types of allies at my side. And honestly, if I ever had something that I was questioning, even if it wasn't on a Hoyt brand, I felt like I could always ask you or Daniel or Darren, and you guys could explain stuff to me, especially in a cam system or when it came to material choice or, rigidity of a system, you guys could always like, lay it out for me in a way that I could then relay it to the people that I was talking to in our community. So those are all key factors. And hopefully that, there's even less barriers now because, I did we all kind of had to go around our bosses a little bit back then, but now we don't have that issue.
Yeah.
What uh what do you think it like what should our first project together be, Zach? You haven't became my boss yet and like pointed my nose in a direction and told me to get after it. So what
I
is it
don't,
that you want me to do? And what is it that you want our community? Because the tools that you give me that I will then be able to give to the community, that was a major decision maker in this whole thing. So how would you answer those two questions?
hmm. The first thing that comes to my mind is leaning on your experience to make us better, right? Having another, like you talked about with from the shooter perspective, from the world class coaches perspective, and so on and so forth. But I think you bring a perspective, and you bring the lessons that you teach back to the table for us at a very high level. So, for me, it's just about the partnership. I don't really have a plan in place today to say, John, here's the very first thing that you and I are going to work on. My focus is more the same way that like I would treat Jeremy when he asks me a question about some piece of clothing. When it comes to like, you have great ideas, that's why we want you on our team because of the teaching that you do, the information that you share, the whole knock on vibe, all of that, your personality, what you bring to the industry. Like, I don't need to direct you. I already wanted you on the team, or I wanted you back on the team. Maybe
Yeah.
that's what I should say. Because I think what you do adds value not just to our brand, but it adds a ton of value to the industry. And so I think our challenge is going to be loosening up a little bit in some of those places where it's like, ah man, you believe John asked for that already? And it's like, yeah, yep. And we said this is what we're gonna do. So it's good for us, right? It's almost like it's a stretch play. It's something that maybe gets, I don't know that it gets us out of our comfort zone, but we just did it a certain way for so long. And it's like we don't have, like you said, we don't have to ask. We can just
Yeah.
make the decision now. And
Yeah.
so, I guess I mean, I'm not trying to get around your question. I think it's a good question, but ultimately when I look at it, it's like, um, we want you back on our team because of the things that you do. And I want you to stretch our team or push our team so that we can become more involved in the things that you do
Well,
well.
I
And
think that's the perfect answer because, well, one, because you're not telling me what to do, but these are the feelings and this is the vibes that I get, and this is what I want to make sure our community, because I'm staying in this game for the Knock On Nation. I mean, I'm tired. I'm tired of this fly for one. I'm getting ready to shoot this thing. I mean,
he's
I'm
he's
gonna get out a
festive.
gobbler guillotine and go start. That's what all these holes are in the wall. They're just from when a fly pisses me off. Um, no, I want people to understand that that's part of what I feel when I made this decision. And a lot of other companies, even though they're great, um, they automatically have ideas on what I need to reshape to help reshape the brand. Whereas, with you guys, it is, hey, you know what you need to do to grow Hoyt, and go do it. And you know what you need to do to grow archery. And if you're growing archery and you need assets from us, let us know what those are. Um, and you're not trying to dictate my content. You're not trying to dictate my why. Honestly, I could tell you guys weren't super happy. I wanted to shoot a few other bows for a month of my life. but I also said, I want to do this for everybody. I want to listen to all the companies. I do want to shoot them. I do want to like at least do that for our whole community because not everyone's going to be shooting Hoyt but in the end, when it comes to like what the fit is, not just for me, but for the knock on nation, because I'm not I'm not here for me. I mean, I'm really, I want to go hunt with Zach and not have a camera and like not have to like, talk about why I freaking blew that stock and how you can avoid that mistake or whatever. Um, but I'm staying in the game and I'm making a big push for this effort. And this last month, I've treated this last month, Zach, just like when I would go to a Worlds. And I think you knew how I was with that. A lot of times, I really didn't want to overtrain. I knew how long it took me to really get ready, and I would fully take everything off the calendar to do what I need to do to make sure I was ready for the team or ready for myself. And that's what I'm doing right now. This is a brand new chapter of my life. It's an added chapter. This is like a bonus chapter that I didn't really know I was going to dive into. Um, but I want to do everything I can to just make archery better and make learning more accessible. And like you said, I want to do a better job of diving into to the real minds behind all this stuff and bring forward information to where it's not getting changed or diluted or honestly just flat out lied about in some of these group chats or whatever. Because right now there's a lot of quote unquote ambassadors or faces in our industry that are honestly self-proclaimed specialists, but dude, they've got less experience than me, you, or Cooper had back then, with some of this information. There's just a huge difference for any type of person that has been internal in a company and sees a company from literally material coming off of a dock, going through an entire process of design and concept, then trying to figure out how to get that design, that prototype actually into full production without there being tolerance problems or issues or, honestly, just delays in the time it takes to get stuff out, not changing the pricing so that, pricing changes mid-year, then coming up with a marketing campaign to where you can talk about it and not crap on other people that, you're trying to just talk about what you do right, not what other people do wrong. And
Mhm.
that's what I've always done. This honestly goes back to what I was taught when I was making cold calls trying to tell someone why they should buy a single cam bow when no one knew what the hell that thing was. And then here's Hoyt coming out with a cam and a half, telling the whole world, I would literally have to go up on a stage and tell a bunch of dealers why single cams are awesome. And then I would walk and sit down, and then all of a sudden, here's a Hoyt guy going up there and talking about a cam and a half system. And what I learned was we just have to talk about what we're doing right and why it is right. You don't have to talk about what people are doing wrong. And when people ask me, why don't you ever talk about this? Why don't I ever see you use those? Maybe it's because I don't like them and they're not good, but I don't want to crap on someone. So instead, I'm going to tell you what you can be good with and what you can rely on and what will work. And that's what I'm looking forward. That's what I'm looking forward to. And that's one of the assignments I want to give you guys is like, please give me the tools to dive deeper into these whys with bow design, string design, limbs, cams. Like, let's let people know why the industry does things the way they do, why there are limitations to what we do. And I think everybody's going to be better because we're just going to be paying it forward with amazing information and eventually I think some really cool consumer experiences to where we can give people the feel that they get when they're on Bigfoot with me at TAC. I want to be able to offer that in the vendor village. I want to be able to offer it,
Mm.
at key events that maybe we put on. Those are the things that I want to do with Hoyt moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, as I sit here and think about, I think one of the things that separates you is that you've grown trust with the Knock On Nation, right? And that's the biggest separator in my mind of when your information comes or your education comes to the table, the things that you're teaching, people trust that it's coming from a place of knowledge and a place of he's tried this. He's not just telling you. But I think on the other side, not necessarily on the other side of that, but I think that's one of the things that draws us to you as well is, and when I think about the people who are on, the owners groups or whatnot, and they're looking for that, who is that trusted person that has that information? I love the idea. I think for a long time in this industry, it was like, everybody was in the corner working on their stuff and we didn't want to tell anybody what we were doing. And this is all top secret. And it's like, it's just not that way anymore. Maybe it's because there's so many patents out there that we're all dancing around or that we're all enforcing. But I think the idea that really driving the understanding, or at least the why, and I guess the why is the understanding around the products and why do we choose to do what we do. There's no there's nothing bad that can come from that from my point of view. When we're sharing that with you, through you to the public or directly to the consumer base, like I agree with you. I don't think that there's any bad can come from that. We'll still have naysayers. I mean, there's Chevys, there's Fords. You got to choose.
Yeah.
There's Matthews, there's Hoyt, there's PSC, there's Elite, all these companies. Yeah, you got to choose. We want you to choose us. Um, we are going to do everything in our power to make that decision an easy one on the Hoyt side and a hard one on every other side. So
I love it. I love it. Did you get that? Did
I
you get the
did.
video? Did you play it yet?
I haven't. I was waiting
All right.
because you wanted me to crank up the volume. So
Yeah, crank it up. This is going to be your guys' post, by the way.
this is going to be our post.
Yeah, this will be how you guys reveal that I'm coming.
Hang on. I got to turn off my hearing aid. It's hell getting old, Judd Dudley.
Trust me, I know, dude. I had to take an ice bath for freaking an hour and then a hot bath just to be able to move these arms after 5,000 in the last 30 days.
Can you hear it?
Well, you need to hear it. It's for you guys, but yeah, it's just a little for those of you who are listening, it's you'll be able to find it. It'll be an announcement. Let's see, it'll be announced on what is today? Today is the August 9th. It'll be an announcement. That's gonna be freaking sweet.
I love it. I love it.
Dude, this thing is shooting so good. I mean, I've pretty much kept a high school kid employed just fixing my arrows for the last freaking 3 weeks, dude. I mean, my lawnmower blade needs sharpening from the amount of knocks I've been driving over and chopping up.
Yeah, I think the Alpha X, I mean, we probably say this every year, but last year when Coop and I both had real good elk tags and we came, Coop's he's on the early list, right? He gets a new bow every year and because he comes from that engineering background, he's a great shooter. And we hunt together every year. And when I sent him the Alpha X33 last year, he took him about, I think, 3 or 4 days to call me up and go, this is the best bow you've ever made. There's no doubt. And I mean, and that comes from like years when he was one of the guys making it
Yeah,
too.
he's
So
got some stuff to be proud of that,
yeah. And so I don't disagree. I think, I said this early on in our conversation today. The stuff we're making today, it's the best stuff we've ever made. Our quality's better, our tolerancing's better, our designs are better, our engineering's better across the board, and our stuff rocks. It does.
Yeah.
So when you say that thing just is unbelievable, it's like, yeah, I
I
know.
honestly don't know which one I shoot better. For a while, I was actually liking the 33 better, but the last 3 days I've been shooting the 8 a lot. Um,
That's just because it's smoother and your shoulders are tired.
in my draw setting, I like the feel that cam I've got it at 30 and 3/4,
Yep.
which I do love that honestly, because I've always bounced between a 30 and a half in hunting clothes and a 31 during the tack season. The 30 and a 3/4 is a really sweet little place, and I feel like the draw curve stacks just a little bit less on the 8 in that position and the ultra
It
than the
does.
33.
Yep. It does. And
Um,
that's because it's an inch down off the top of the draw range. So that just takes the draw curve and just softens the nose of it just a little bit. And
yeah.
so you would feel it. Yeah. I mean, shooting 5,000 shots in 3 weeks. Yeah, you'd feel that.
Well, did I send you the video, which is the video that's gonna be my main post of, me going back to Hoyt, going back home. I had an employee come over last night at like, I don't know, it was like 8 o'clock or 8:30, and I was still shooting. And, honestly, I was like, hey, dude, can you just get some slow motion of this arrow flight? I had some lighted knocks on,
Yeah.
and I'm not gonna lie, I I probably came off my back wall like 4 times. I I do not have the strength to keep a bow back right now. Like I am exhausted, and like, but if it would have been my levitate, and I don't want to poop on my PSE, but that cam had some speed, which is what I wanted out of it. And I can just tell you that, well, there's actually 3 bows I've shot where if any of those 3 bows were in that clip that wasn't a Hoyt with that cam in that position, I would have launched my release downrange because it would have taken it away from me. I was like, I was just sitting there like, dude, I mean, just hold this back. I mean, it's literally 7 pounds. Like, don't be a bitch. This is like 7 pounds. This is a jug of milk. Just hold it back. And I'm just like struggling. But I freaking, literally shot one of crushed one arrow shaft and then touched the vanes on that third arrow. And I didn't realize that he wasn't filming in slow motion. He was actually just filming, and I was kind of just joking with him. But then when I realized like he was still filming, I just went with the moment and went down to the elk target, which so many people historically have seen me shoot during the Hoyt days, um, from the back of the house. And I walked down there and I'm just like, this is why I'm going home. This thing th- that was equal to a legit hunt where you're exhausted, and it's like, the last day you got 7 minutes of shooting light left, and you don't even have what it takes to pull it back, but you get it back, and you don't have what it takes to keep it back, but you just dig a little bit deeper and you pull on that sucker, and then the arrow just goes exactly where you want it to in the 12 ring. I'm like, okay, if anyone had questions, this is why. I want to pick what I can shoot, and my everything about my body just said, "Oh yeah, I remember this." And so, thank you guys so much for having me back too, Zach. I really appreciate it, and I want the industry to know too. It's not like I wasn't like pulling a Jerry Maguire saying, show me the money to everybody either. I mean, you can vouch for that.
Yeah.
It was I really wanted it to all be for the right reasons, and I wanted it to be for the right relationship, and I wanted it to be for what was right for the community, for our community, for the knock on community. So I'm pumped, dude. Thank you guys. I wish I could give you a hug through Zoom.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I mean,
Don't squeeze too tight though. I'm so brittle right now, man. Like I gotta
get in some ice water.
yeah, after tomorrow's announcement, literally I'm gonna just take a rest for like 7 days and try to eat and put some fat on and prepare for my first hunt of the year. Cause yeah, right now I'm just depleted from preparation, but all's good.
All right, man. Well, we're super excited to have you back on Team Hoyt, back in the family, so to speak. And yeah, looking forward to what's left or what's coming in the future.
And me too, dude.
Be sure to check out knockonarchery.com for our full line of custom designed products, as well as free in-depth education and bow hunting entertainment to help you shoot at your best.